several hospitals in London and the southeast of England say they're under extreme pressure due to the sheer weight of COVID cases. Patients are being moved as intensive care units reach capacity.
There's been a small number of patients transferred around the country, very long distances, to enable them to receive intensive care. So patients have come both to Plymouth and to Bristol from Kent.
The end of nearly a 50-year partnership, the UK leaves the trading bloc of the EU at 11 p.m. tonight. The delay to the return of secondary schools in England will be as short as possible, say government ministers. And at midnight tonight, another 20 million people in England will go into Tier 4, the highest level of COVID-19 restrictions.
Democracy activist and media owner Jimmy Lai has been released ahead of his trial on charges tied to a new national security law. South Korea's government is facing intense public pressure to speed up its vaccination program, which favors Korean-produced treatments over foreign ones. In the Central African Republic, rebels seized the large city of Bambari Tuesday ahead of national elections Sunday. And in Armenia, thousands demonstrated Tuesday in Yerevan demanding the resignation of the prime minister over the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh.
We start here in Japan, where Tokyo reached a grim milestone in rounding off the year 2020. Authorities reported a record 1,337 new cases of coronavirus in the capital on Thursday. It is the first time the daily tally has risen above 1,000. The previous high was 949, hit on Saturday. Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide briefed reporters after talking with ministers.
I instructed the ministers again to work in tandem with the Tokyo metropolitan government to boost the capacity of the healthcare system during the New Year holidays.
Across Japan, officials have reported over 4,500 new infections on Thursday. More than 236,000 people have tested positive since the pandemic began. Over 3,500 have died. The health ministry says 6 people were confirmed to have a new variant of the virus. That brings the total number of infections attributed to new strains to 21. An expert says he's worried such new strains could be driving the uptick in cases.
If the current situation continues, it could lead to an explosive rise in infections. I'm very worried about it. We can't deny that the recent surge in cases might be related to the spread of new variants of the virus. We have to monitor and check whether each infection is caused by a new strain.
Well, here in Japan, temples, shrines, and seasonal events typically attract crowds at the turn of the year. Trains in the Tokyo area usually run all night from New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, but not this time. East Japan Railway says it won't run overnight services on the Yamanote Loop Line or other local routes. It's also not running services that people use to see the year's first sunrise. Other railways also decided not to run all-night trains. That came after requests from the governors of Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures. One big draw for people in Tokyo at New Year's is a Shinto shrine called Meiji Jingu. It's usually open through the night from New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. On Thursday, it closed its gates at 4 p.m.
I usually come in the first few days of the new year, but I came early because I was worried about crowds.
About 3 million people normally visit the shrine over the first 3 days of the new year. Many go during the early hours of New Year's Day. This time, the gates won't open until 6 a.m. China has approved a domestically developed coronavirus vaccine. Authorities there say it meets the standards for safety and efficacy. This is the first time they have authorized a vaccine against COVID-19. The Chinese government says the vaccine was developed by the Beijing Institute of Biological Products. That's an affiliate of the state-owned drug maker Sinopharm. The developer says interim analysis of clinical trial data shows the vaccine is more than 79% effective and meets standards set by the World Health Organization. A senior Chinese health official said 4.5 million doses have been administered. He said fewer than 0.1% of recipients developed a slight fever. He said 2 in a million experienced serious side effects such as an allergic reaction. The Chinese government says it aims to achieve herd immunity by expanding vaccinations to high-risk groups such as the elderly. Japan's meteorological agency is warning of heavy snow in many parts of the country during the New Year holidays. Authorities are warning of disruption to transportation and a possibility of blackouts. The severe weather is due to an unusually cold air mass over Japan. Weather officials say heavy snow is falling along the Sea of Japan coast. They expect it to get heavier through New Year's Day. They say snowfall may continue through Saturday along the Sea of Japan coast in the north and northeast. In Mine City in Yamaguchi Prefecture, icy roads caused an accident involving 9 vehicles. 7 cars went up in flames. 2 men were injured. Police found a person dead in a burned-out truck. They're trying to confirm whether it is the driver. The winter weather is forcing railways and airlines to scale back their schedules. Services on part of the Yamagata Shinkansen bullet train line in the northeast are suspended through New Year's Day. On Thursday, Japan Airlines and All Nippon Airways canceled more than 150 flights. Airlines and other transport providers are urging travelers to check the latest information as there may be more cancellations. And now to Yemen. Explosions have hit an airport there. At least 15 people were killed. This came just after a plane carrying newly appointed cabinet ministers touched down. A series of explosions hit the international airport Wednesday in the southern city of Aden. Many government officials were there. The International Committee of the Red Cross said on Twitter that 3 of their colleagues had been killed. Reuters news agency reported the airport had been hit by mortar shells. No more details were available. Yemen has been plagued by a civil war between the Saudi-backed government and the Iranian-backed Houthi militia group that's dragged on for more than 5 years. The government formed a new cabinet last week after reaching consensus with a major separatist group. The separatist group has cooperated with President Abdrabbuh Mansur Hadi in the fight against the Houthis. The government is stepping up vigilance as it sees the explosions as an attack targeting ministers. China's market regulator has fined 3 online retailers for allegedly manipulating prices during the country's Singles' Day discount sales campaigns. The State Administration of Market Regulation announced on Wednesday it had taken the decision following complaints from consumers over the company's pricing strategies. November 11th is known as Singles' Day in China because the number 1 symbolizes people with no partner. Online retailers hold major sales campaigns to mark the date. Tech giant Alibaba Group reported its Singles' Day sales totaled about $74 billion. The regulator said the e-commerce retailers raised prices before the sale to make their discounts look larger, and they also made false advertisements. It fined the companies, which include Alibaba and JD.com, about $77,000 each for irregular pricing. China has increased regulation of internet giants in recent weeks. In November, the government announced a plan to tighten control of deals made by firms that exploit their monopolistic positions. China and the European Union have reached an agreement on a business investment deal that took 7 years to negotiate. Leaders of China and the EU held a video conference on Wednesday and agreed on a pact aimed at boosting investment between the two sides. The focal point of the discussions was the protection of workers in China. The EU says people in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region are being used for forced labor and urges China to improve the situation. Another sticking point was China's practice of forcing European businesses to transfer their technology in exchange for local market access. The EU says China agreed to pursue ratification of an international treaty that bans forced labor and to make improvements on the issue of forced technology transfer. The EU says the agreement is the most ambitious that China has ever clinched with a third country, but some in the bloc say China's commitments to the protection of workers fall short. And some Europeans are also concerned that the two sides rushed to reach agreement ahead of the inauguration of Joe Biden as next U.S. president. The incoming administration is wary of closer ties between the EU and China.
New Year's Eve here in Times Square, and a celebration that will be very different from what we've ever seen before. Trevor Ault is right outside with a breakdown of what we will and what we will not see for the countdown to 2021. Trevor, good morning.
Good morning, Whit, and Happy New Year. You know, for more than 100 years, this has been the place the eyes of the world have turned to for the final moments of one year, the first moments of the next year, and all the hope that comes with it. And this year, for the first time, instead of hundreds of thousands of people, there's going to be virtually nobody here in Times Square to watch the ball drop. Now, the ball will still be dropping, but police are going to be barricading this area for blocks around, trying to limit the crowds with this pandemic still raging. Having said that, because of the spectacle of this event, police say they still have to treat it as a potential target, and there's going to be hundreds of officers here, most of them just working those barricades on the outskirts of Times Square, making sure nobody, even on the outside, lingers or starts to form a crowd. The police chief went as far as to say, do not even attempt to get in here. The only people who will be allowed in, besides the cast and the crew of the television broadcasts, are going to be a few dozen special guests, frontline workers, emergency responders and their families, and even they are going to be sequestered into tiny areas to try to limit the viral spread. All the rest of us will be watching this event from home as that crystal ball drops on 2020. Although, guys, I think most of us would agree 2020 dropped the ball a long time ago. Mary?
I think that is very safe to say. Thank you, Trevor. Dr. Jen Ashton joining us now with some of your COVID-19 and other medical questions. Dr. Jen, as always, thank you. And so the first question is there an estimate for when the majority of Americans will be vaccinated in 2021?
Well, Amy, according to most public health officials and epidemiologists, you know, the hope is sometime by summer 2021, that last phase of people will be offered access to their vaccine. Remember, many of them will be 2-dose regimens, so there's a time delay there in that. But if you just look at phase 1, which we are just starting right now, phase 1A, residents of long-term care facilities and healthcare workers, which is about 24 million people. Then when you go to phase 1B, that is a massive group of almost 90 million Americans, healthcare workers, essential workers that are literally food, agriculture, transportation, prisons, corrections, education, you name it. That is a huge group. And then 1C, adults over the age of 65 and any adult with a chronic medical condition. So then by the time we get to midsummer, we'll be getting kind of everyone else in there. So it's going to take a while.
It's going to be a great summer in 2021, though, right, Doc? Right. Next question here. What's the best piece of advice you, who has a degree in nutrition, can give about setting realistic diet resolutions for 2021?
I love this question. And in fact, you know, Amy and I talk about nutrition and how we eat all the time. I tend to say you need 3 S's for a good approach to eating. A diet or approach to eating needs to be safe, it needs to be simple, and it needs to be sustainable. In 2021, I'm going to re-up a 4th S, and that will be sugar. So pay attention to that added sugar. Amy knows that. I really do believe that it is one of the most important things on that nutritional label. So 4 S's as you head into next year.
It is a game changer when you can avoid it, Jen, as you and I both know. All right, we're working on TJ, though. Third question, has anything positive come out of the COVID-19 pandemic? What have we learned about how to handle future viruses?
Wow, I think there are so many silver linings in this pandemic, and you don't even have to go far below the surface to look for them. First of all, as we prepare for the next pandemic, a greater respect for animals, agriculture, how we live with animals. A lot of pandemics originate in animals, and so the field of emerging and zoonotic infectious diseases has always gotten not enough attention, and we need to change that. Focus on supply chains in terms of pharmaceuticals will be a focus, and then, you know, resilience and how we have demonstrated that from within our healthcare system and without. And again, if you talk to infectious disease specialists, they will say it is not a matter of if there's a next pandemic, but when. And I do believe that if we pay attention to the lessons learned, we absolutely can be better prepared the next time.
All right. Well, you just got us all speechless here. Dr. Ashton, no, you can continue to submit your questions into the new year as you have during this entire 2022. Dr. Ashton on her Instagram at Dr. J. Ashton.